Looked like a pretty lively, raucous event last night at the library where Nick Haynes, our buddy at Kansas City PBS, was moderating. It wasn't a debate. It was more of a forum between folks on both sides of the April 2nd vote on the 3/8 sales tax for the Royals and the Chiefs. And one of those folks on the yes side, kind enough to join us here on KCMO, that is the former mayor of Kansas City, Sly James. He's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Sly, good morning. You made it through okay last night?
Sure, I've made it through fine. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. So, listen, I know this is interesting, right? Because, and you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, you have, and you're a proud Democrat, but you have folks to your left, very progressive individuals who are against this while you are for it. And then you have maybe more conservative folks who are against taxing in general who are also against this. As you look at that breakdown politically on where we're at right now ahead of April 2nd, what do you make of this interesting dichotomy of political bedfellows that we're seeing take place here in Kansas City and Jackson County?
Oh, I think it's just a sign of the times. We're in a very populist type environment politically, a very divisive time politically, a lot of us against them politically motivated speech. So it's not surprising, quite frankly, but it is troublesome in that it is rather divisive.
What do you make then? And I heard these questions, and they've gotten asked at various forums. When some of these folks say, hey, why do the Royals and the Chiefs, two, billion-dollar operations, why do they need the working voters' monies for their stadium? What would you say to that person?
Well, first of all, it's not their stadium. Stadiums are owned by the county. The county has been a partner in these stadiums for the last 50 years. There's no real reason for that to change. The bottom line is that very few things of this magnitude are done with either straight public money or straight private money. If you look at all the teams around the country who built stadiums, there's only a couple where there have been total payment by the owners. LA is a good example, but they didn't build a stadium; they built a city, a small city. That whole area around the stadium is for the benefit of the owner. He'll be able to collect all the rents and all the money that's generated by those outside buildings and interest and use it for whatever purpose he wants. Here, what we're asking for is some recognition of the fact that these stadiums are owned by the county and will be owned by the county, and they will be there for 40 years, and they're going to require maintenance and upkeep just like the 50-year-old stadiums that they're in now.
Well, with the Royals then, how would that work? Because we know they want to do, the bars, the restaurants, the apartments and things like that. Would those revenues be shared by the county, or would that go only to the team?
Well, first of all, the Royals' plans for doing things has been tremendously scaled back. All of that would have been true had they moved to East Village, where they would have built bars and restaurants, but those bars and restaurants would have then competed with Power and Light and the other interests downtown. And rather than do that, which doesn't make any sense, you don't want to divide your revenue for a city-supported entity like Power and Light. You want to support it. The Royals moving to where they're moving would provide Power and Light with a lot more income and revenue, such that the bonds that support them are paid off without any city help. So the bottom line is simply this. If you look at baseball around the country, baseball is being played in urban settings. They're not being played out in suburbs anymore. And if you look at teams that have moved, you'll see that teams that have moved have always moved over stadium issues. Mm-hmm. So that's the problem. And I've got a lot of numbers that I could throw out, but I won't, about what's been contributed in other places. And frankly, there's a lot of stadiums that have been built with a lot more public money than what we're talking about here.
Is there one in particular that stands out to you?
Well, one thing that I can say is that when you look at Levi Stadium, for example, we hear a lot about it doesn't generate any revenue or income for the city. Levi Strauss not Levi Strauss, but the Levi Stadium out in Santa Clara. A 2023 economic report indicates that it's generated hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes for Santa Clara since it's been set up. They had $33 million of economic activity and $1.28 million of taxes generated by 2 Taylor Swift concerts, if that shows you anything. And then we hear people, well, Independence is going to have a deficit in their revenue of $7 million. If they're going to have a deficit of $7 million because the Royals leaving, that kind of refutes the idea that they don't generate anything, because if they weren't generating anything, there wouldn't be anything to lose.
Mm-hmm. So back to what we were just then addressing, Sly James, former mayor on KCMO Talk Radio. He's a yes vote on April 2nd. He is advocating. He was at the library last night for this town hall that took place. Do you think, I know that the baseball economics are as such where the teams need other revenue streams, but if we're talking about a new stadium that is county owned, and even if they've pared back some of their grandiose plans, should the county, which is the taxpayer, should they feel like they are getting something for their money, and will they get something for their money?
Yes, they get something for their money. They get $200 million on the current lease. $200 million goes back to the county that's currently going to the stadiums. That's the insurance that the county currently pays. That's the parks revenue that the county currently pays. All that goes back to the county under the new lease that's being agreed to. That's being agreed to as we talk. The Sports Authority already has the leases, and they're ready to send them back. With regards to other things, we've got a $140 million community benefit agreement, which is the largest of any sports team that we're aware of in the country. That goes to the county for distribution for various needs that they see over that 40-year time frame. And then we have a community benefits agreement that we're working with Crossroads. We have a community benefit agreements that we're working with Arts KC, and one that we're working on with the school district. So there's 4 places right there where there is money that's going to go back to those entities that I described in order to make life better and to do things. Part of the community benefit in the Crossroads is to help them with the CID, so that they can do the things that they've been trying to do for 20 years and haven't been able to get it done. Royals are contributing a lot of money to that, a lot of money to the arts, etc. So, yeah, there's benefits going back to them, but, people don't seem to want to hear that. So good luck.
What do you say, Sly James, on KCMO? Always just blunt as ever, which we appreciate. It's always good for radio, Sly, just being blunt. I love that. What do you make of, this whole debate on whether or not this is a new tax? I mean, you can call it an extension. Some will say it's a new tax. How do you see that? I know it's not an additional tax, but it was a tax that was set to sunset. So I kind of compare it like, hey, if you and I went into a deal and I lent you $100 for 24 months, and then you said, hey, can I get $100 a month for 36 months? And I said no, and you said, well, hey, it's still $100 a month. Is that technically a new loan? Is it a new tax? How would you explain that?
I call it semantics, because at the end of the day, it's the same 3/8 cents that we've been collecting for the last 20 years since the renovations in 2006, and it's the same amount of the tax rate. I guess if you wanted to look at it from the standpoint of what the ballot language says, the ballot language describes it as a new tax, but it's a repeal of the old tax and replacing that with a different tax for the same amount. Either way you look at it, it's still 3/8 cents of a tax.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mayor James, thank you as always for the time. We appreciate it. It's going to be a very interesting next couple of weeks in this county. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right. That is Sly James on KCMO Talk Radio.